Welcome to the Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community, a space where justice meets action and community voices rise. Each episode, we bring you stories from the front lines, changemakers, disruptors, and everyday heroes who are building a more just, equitable, and liberated world. This is more than a podcast. It's a call to listen, learn, and move together. You were just listening to music from the incredibly talented Stephen Kong. You can find him on Spotify and Bandcamp. Today we have with us Brian Luis, recruiter, program manager, financial coach, facilitator, site director. While Brian has worn many job titles in his 15 plus years in the Bay Area nonprofit sector, his passion for service to others has remained the same. A self-proclaimed forever optimist, he tries to find joy in a work that can often feel hopeless. Luckily, he's always been able to find it, whether developing future leaders in community, working for justice-impacted individuals, or building talent pipelines for non-traditional talent. Father, husband, Filipino-American, dreamer, videogamer, Logophile. Brian's personal life is just as varied as his professional journey. His worldview is shaped by growing up in a very different and yet similar places, from rural Philippines to the city life in the Bay Area. Through it all, he lives his life centered on three values: to leave this world a better place, to find joy in whatever he does, and to experience what life has to offer. Oh, hi, Brian. I'm so excited and really grateful that you're here today. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited also to just.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. You're really like an incredible, amazing individual, and you've done so much for community. So I'm excited just to see where our conversation is going to go today.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you. I know this is my first podcast, so I'm excited also
Your
and
debut.
nervous, but you know.
No, don't be nervous. You're wonderful. But yeah, just starting off, you've had such a multifaceted journey. So you've talked about being from the rural Philippines to the Bay Area. So how have those different environments shaped how you see justice and community today?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think in the Philippines, my mom was working out here in the States, and then so was sending money and doing remittances and all that stuff. So we were fortunate in the Philippines to have like a large house in that. So kind of grew up in that space of, I would say, feeling like a middle class.
Mhm.
And we had a farm and all that stuff. So it was very much shaped in that beginning of my life, like in that kind of environment, having things, not really being worried so much, not knowing what it means to be poor in those things.
Mm.
And then around, I want to say when I was 8 or 9,
Yeah.
moved to the States permanently. We're supposed to just visit, but one thing led to another. Parents got divorced, got into ugly divorce, and all that stuff. And eventually, moved to Antioch to kind of get away from Oakland, all those things.
Mhm.
And well, sorry, before that, like even in Oakland, I remember just like I think my mom being on welfare and
Yeah.
doing those things. So it was like a interesting shift, both from like a socioeconomic status
Yeah.
type of thing. Also in the Philippines, just having a lot of Filipinos, a lot of kind of my people in that sense, and then
Mhm.
going to Oakland, which is very diverse and really like eye-opening in that sense to like see a diverse set of
Yeah.
folk. Um, And yeah, so it was interesting in that sense to kind of just see the differences. And then like I said, kind of growing up poor from that from that half, but never really felt like it, if that made
Uh-huh.
sense. Because my mom, bless her heart, working two jobs and
Wow.
like really providing for the family. So I think there's kind of those moments where what I was trying to say is I think there's different moments in growing up in that like middle class in the Philippines, but like being very rural,
Mhm.
and what that looked like, and like, and then in the U.S. and like what it means to
Wow.
be kind of on welfare and
Yeah.
those things as well, and so they look differently because
Right.
they're kind of different way of life,
Uh-huh.
right, and the way kind of what that looks like, but I think my sense of justice probably didn't really quite start until, well, I shouldn't say that. I think my sense of justice really was shaped a lot by my um, siblings and my mom in particular. I think
Mhm.
my mom was very much like had a big heart and always looked at. I just felt like anytime I was at the house or like she's always helping somebody.
Uh-huh.
It was like someone new at the house is staying with us because she's helping them out,
Mhm.
because they just got kicked out of their place, or she was helping my friends apply for college because they didn't know how to kind of navigate that, and she's learning also in these places. So, I think my sense of justice really probably started from that.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, but yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And you were just talking about like just noticing those differences in like economic status, but like did you notice those differences when you came to United States, like being a young child? Did you make those observations even then?
Yeah, I mean, I did in a sense
Uh-huh.
of, it's like I just remember, some memories that I have of like having holes in my shoes,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
knowing that we didn't have the most money, and so I'm not really necessarily going to ask for a new shoes,
Yeah.
and I probably could have, and mom probably would have, but again, there's something in that about like making sure we're frugal and not spending money, right? And so I
Yeah.
remember putting cardboard on kind of my shoes so that way the hole doesn't get to my socks and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
there's kind of those memories, and I think just noticing the different lifestyle of it. Again, rural Philippines, we had a farmland, and it was just
Hmm.
very much like dirt roads and simple life in that sense. And then I would visit the US here and there. And so I still had knowledge of like what the US looked like. So it wasn't a complete aftershock.
Right.
But when, finally moving here, and kind of going to the school here and that, you do notice kind of the different lifestyle
Yeah.
that happens. And kind of the miscommunications that even happen. Like, I remember again, like, I remember like an event even, when I was in Oakland, and one of my teacher, she was
Hmm.
African American, she had asked, to write something about your history or kind of
Yeah.
um, about your culture. And I remember at the time I was just kind of learning in the Philippines. There's a I can't quite remember this, but there's an event anyways where uh I gotta look it up. But essentially in Tagalog, right, there's a lot of like K languages. But anyways, it's like it had a oh shoot, I can't remember. I gotta look it up. But
Oh.
it was like, yeah, it's something like, was oh, this is gonna sound bad here, but it's like something like KKK or something like that. So I drew the flag. You know
Okay.
what I mean? And it was translated to, what was it? And so I drew the flag kind of talking about that. I was like proud of it, right?
Right.
And then she was like, "What is this? You're not gonna write this." I was like, "What happened?"
Oh
Again, it's part
no.
of like my ignorance.
Yeah.
Both our ignorance. Obviously, she didn't know what I was uh,
Yeah.
coming from, but yeah, it was definitely one of those moments that you just kind of had some misunderstandings.
No, thank you for sharing that. And just to follow up to that, so I know you give back to the community a lot, in your career. So when you think back to your early years, what were some of the first experiences that sparked your passion for service?
Yeah. I mean, again, I think my mom was one of them where it felt like, she was always helping somebody out. And so that
Hmm.
felt like I wanted to, to do that as well. And there was something about being helpful, I think, that
Hmm.
unlocked something in me that I was like, oh, this is a nice feeling, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that's some of like my earliest experience. I think it wasn't until really after college going to an American program called Public Allies that really sparked the,
Yeah.
like, I can make a career out of this thing actually.
Right.
And so I think it was that, and kind of thinking about where thinking about like service and my place in the world even,
Mm,
and really starting to look at like the values that I've had. I think I've always had certain kind of values. Uh,
mm,
nowadays I'm clear with like the three core values that I have, right? It's like, have
yeah.
joy, leave this world a better place, um, and experience life as much as possible. There's just something in there about like leave this world a better place that I think I've had again implement.
Mm,
My mom kind of embedded in me, and um, the public allies really crystallized
mhm.
and being in the AmeriCorps program, and then being working with you and working with folks like Bethina and Alex.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, really crystallized to say this is a passion of mine that I really want to pursue.
Yeah, no, it was the same for me too. And, I love that we work together too.
Yeah.
And, I just got a chance to meet a lot of like-minded folks, but it really helped, yeah, myself to give that vehicle for like passion. And, um, yeah, I feel like before Public Allies, I might have thought like, oh, nonprofits, it's just like putting band-aids on situations. But I felt like, through Public Allies, we learned about how to serve, how to be in community and of service to other people. And yeah, I thought that was really cool. It's just like learning more about the nonprofit sector and how you can not just support people. Cause I felt like, oh, I don't want to just like give out food or money to like, to
Mhm.
for like housing insecurity. I actually want to make systemic change. But I think going through that program and being on staff, like it really taught me like, no, you could actually make changes within these nonprofit organizations too.
Yeah. Yeah. And something I've been thinking a lot about actually is, especially now, 15 years into this career,
I
of
know.
always been in nonprofit,
Uh-huh.
like coming in very much with that, what's the word, I guess, um, like bright-eyed and ready to like shake up the
Yeah.
world and, kind of had that energy. And so,
Right.
and now the more I get into the field and the longer I've had, the more jaded I get in terms
Yeah.
of like the changes that can happen on a systemic or big level, And so
Yeah.
it's like it starts it starts to like wane on me at least, and then
Yeah.
I start to really appreciate the work that what I love about like Public Allies was getting to see the young folks kind of like
Hmm.
continue to reignite. And when I'm
Yeah.
working right now, my current role is the same thing, like seeing just the young folks have that same energy because we need it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I need it
Right.
because it reminds me of, I think, the impact of individuals,
Uh-huh.
and on a kind of a different level or a different scale, that I got to remind myself like, this is the work, and this is kind of what I think about when I say leave this world a better place, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's just that one person that I was able to connect with,
Yeah.
make their day a little bit better, to I had someone who just talked who shared with me was a couple months ago, talked about like when I taught him how to tie a tie, because that's one of the things
Mm.
that we
Yeah.
did. He was like, "Yeah, I think about you every time I tie a tie
Oh,
now."
that's so cool.
And so it was like one of those like,
Yeah.
again, small moments,
Yeah,
but
you never
to
know.
me, yeah, to me, and it sounded like to him, it was really an impactful one. And so when he says that and he shares that, it's like I gotta remember that this is
Yeah.
that part.
No, that leads on perfectly to the next question that I had for you. So this is something that I loved how you described yourself, but you describe yourself as a forever optimist. So where do you think the optimism comes from, especially when working in spaces that can often feel heavy and hopeless? Because I totally
Mhm.
resonate with what you talked about. Like, it's one thing to, go to a protest or do like a volunteer at like a food bank or something for a day, but it's another thing to actually like live it day by day and make this like a career. So yeah, what keeps that optimism for you?
Yeah. It's funny because is it like a nurture nature thing? Like have I always been kind of, an optimist? And I th- I think part of it is as far as I can recall, I've always been a very reflective person, I think,
Hmm.
and self-aware in a sense of like how I'm acting or how I'm. So I think there's pieces of that that's like I just recall. I even recall things about like when I became atheist, and those kinds of
Yeah.
things, of like moments of thinking about religion, because I grew up very Catholic, and so grew up, praying to
Yeah.
God, believing in God, and doing these things. And so it's an interesting thing. I even like I want to say. at like 10 or 11 thinking about, okay, where
Wow.
is my place in this thing? And,
Wow.
and so all that to share, like, I think at some point in these moments of like self-reflections, I've gotten to be again, I don't think I can say with great clarity back then that as I do now, like where my core
Yeah.
values are, or where my place is at. Um, and so I think some of my optimism kind of drives from that.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's morphed in different ways, but I remember like at some point just feeling the power of like a decision, like how you can make a decision and kind of change
Mhm.
things. Um, and I remember just like, I'm just gonna be happy, because like
Yeah.
growing up, in that household where again, I've always enjoyed my childhood, but I think if there's moments of like, seeing my dad lay hands on my mom, right? Like that's
Mhm.
not necessarily a happy moment, or my family someone's always not talking to somebody as far as I can
Yeah.
remember, like a sibling who, and I'm not necessarily in the middle of it, but I was in the middle of it in terms of just seeing all that strife.
Yeah.
And so it's amidst all this is just deciding, hey, I'm just gonna be happy because why not?
Yeah.
In a weird sense of way. And so
Yeah.
for a while, it was like, okay, I'm not even gonna, I'm just gonna be the guy that's always just happy, right? And all that, which then turned into a place of like, well, that's not always, and that's why I'm always appreciative of public allies is also realizing and hearing the things like, that's not really coming from uh, I want to say genuine place. It was not really
Mhm.
coming from a place of like, it's not always a good thing, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of, even reading like Brene Brown now, there's always a lot
Mhm.
of power and vulnerability, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of connections in there. And so now it's a balance, so I think I've been able to find balance in that. But I think that optimism of it has always been there in the sense of like I'm going to believe things are going to work out
Yeah.
because I rather prepare for the worst, but you know what
Yeah.
I mean? At the same time, I'm not going to worry about something that I can't control. Uh,
Yeah.
and so I think that's given me at a kind of a even keel.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. And, I feel like it takes incredible strength to have that kind of optimism, though, because I feel like, there's a lot of things I think out there that we can like pull you down and stuff. So, yeah, thank you. I think that's wonderful. And for you to like realize that so early in your life, that's amazing, though. So,
Yeah, and I don't know I think I was maybe being the youngest of five being ignored.
oh no.
I'm sure my siblings would say I was spoiled, but I think there's probably some pieces in that where yeah, I don't know what it was, but I always just remember and probably couldn't sleep too, like staying up at night thinking about all these like deep
Wow.
thoughts,
Wow.
able to just think through them. So.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. So I know that you've worn so many different hats, had so many different roles in your career. So what thread connects all of these different chapters of your career for you?
Yeah. Um, I think for my professional career, it's I would say in the kind of general sense, it's always been workforce development in that sense, right? Like whether it's
Hmm.
supporting the new generation of leaders in the nonprofit
Yeah,
community work to folks coming out of incarceration and supporting kind of them getting jobs and those kinds of things, and now supporting tapping into untapped talent. I think there's always that's kind of like the general thread.
hmm,
Um, but I think the other piece that connects to it is there is a joy in seeing change in someone,
yeah,
right? And
right.
and and that forces me to change also,
Yeah,
if that
yeah,
makes sense.
totally.
I always share with people like one of my old roles was being a site director, and that was
Hmm.
something that was scary for me because um, I just didn't, I don't like to be kind of in the forefront of things.
Yeah,
I love supporting people and kind of supporting from the back, behind the
yeah,
scenes,
yeah,
um, but not want to, want to always kind of be in front of people. So, but it's funny because coaching people throughout my years has always been like, you got to go with what's uncomfortable. You got to face your fear, right? There's a
yeah.
lot of like strength in that. And so when I was finally faced with it, and it's funny because one of my first not first conversation, but I remember a conversation when I was in Public Allies with Bethina was really talking about, she said, "Well, you probably make a good director." And at
Oh,
the time, I
okay.
was like, "What is that?" Like a site director, I was like, "What? I don't know. That doesn't sound." I'm like,
Yeah.
in my career, that's very intimidating.
Yeah.
Then when there was another opportunity, some years later, somebody said the same thing. I was like, "Oh, have you ever thought about the site director role that was might be opening up?" I was like, "Oh, that's crazy." Like again,
Yeah.
but luckily, right, been very self-reflective and all that. So why do I keep saying no to these things like as an automatic response?
Yeah.
And I think some of that is like the belief of myself that I can do it.
Yeah.
Fear of again being in front, but why, right? Um,
Yeah.
and if I'm challenging and coaching people all the time to like think about these things and
Yeah.
push yourself and push your boundaries. Now I'm faced with that too. Like, am I going to be
Right.
a fraud when I do that to students? Right? Like when I have these same conversations, it's going to come in the back of my mind. Well, I'm not doing that either. So
Yeah.
so there's a lot of this. I think again, joy from seeing people grow, and
Mhm.
it pushes me to kind of see my own areas of growth also.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's something that I'm really grateful for Public Allies too. And I keep telling people the story. I think in particular, like Alex and Bettina, when they were there when I was an ally still, and like being put into that director of recruitment role, because I'm like, wow, I was like, I'm like kind of terrified talking to people and talking to strangers. And I'm like, I don't know. But like having that trust, so like, no, Denise, you could be like, this director of recruitment. We trust you. And yeah, I really appreciate being pushed into that role because I think for myself, as young as I was, I don't think I would have ever even thought to apply for a director level position.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Especially
Yeah.
because it feels like we get low, or I get lulled into this like steps, right? Like things have to progress A,
Right.
B, C, D, right?
I know.
Versus like, hey, sometimes you can go to D all the way, and sometimes you got to go back, right?
Yeah.
Or not even just go back, but sometimes just a different direction, right?
Right.
That's okay. And so, but yeah, to your point, same thing. I wouldn't have, either.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So, I know that you've worked, as you mentioned too, you worked many years in the nonprofit sector. So, have you seen the nonprofit sector evolve in the Bay Area over your years of service, just working with different organizations?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no in a sense, I guess.
Okay.
I it feels to me like there's just a lot of like people are doing some amazing things, right? And like
Right.
impacting lives, and like different connections or different things kind of coming up. So it's been cool to kind of see that way, right? It's also, going to be interesting where AI is like the hot topic everywhere,
Hmm.
right? So it's
Yeah.
going to be interesting how AI gets kind of touched on in
Yeah.
the nonprofit world, or the impacts that it's even doing now,
Yeah.
So, but in terms of like a part of me still feels like there is just a lot of like richness and power in the Bay Area,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, I know there's a lot of things that I'm sure we can dive to this probably longer than this podcast, but at the same time, we still have the highest inequity, right? And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
seeing kind of the discrepancies of who have and who hasn't,
Hmm.
and who has access to what, and those kinds of things, and we're not like Bay Area is not just really big in the U.S., right? Like Bay Area is like a
Yeah.
international known place, right? And a lot of
Right.
like things happen here from tech, you know what I mean? So it's interesting because I feel like I don't know, has the needle really moved in that sense?
Yeah.
So we talk about obviously we talked about like nonprofit industry complex and those kinds of things and what happened. And so
Yeah.
maybe this is again my cynicalness kind of coming out
No, me
as a,
too.
as a forever optimist, right? But so I think in that sense they're not. But the optimist part of me still comes in like there is. I feel like we can figure it out. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like at
No,
some
totally.
point, someone's gonna have to figure it out. Like
Yeah.
something's gonna have to change or shift.
No, I've been struggling a lot with that too. Just because I've been in the nonprofit sector for a while myself, and just seeing the ups and downs, and also like thinking of like I'm sure you've noticed too, just like how we have to meet our numbers or make funders happy. And sometimes it feels like it's taking away from the work or like from our vision of why we joined like the nonprofit world in the first place. So I get there too. I'm not gonna lie, I'm get pretty cynical myself too. I'm like, it just feels like a monster of a system too. Even though we're trying to do good work, is still we're like it's a system, it's a nonprofit industrial complex, and
Yeah.
just how to navigate that.
Yeah, I'll give you another one actually that it still rings to my mind after a couple of years of hearing about it. But I remember being in a space and I was just talking with someone and we were chatting up about how essentially, there's this program that's doing real well,
Hmm.
right? But the cost of running it is a lot in supporting young adults and it has some good numbers and all that stuff.
Okay.
But instead of asking the question of like, how can we continue to support this? It's like,
Yeah.
well, it's taking this much money to support this. So what can we do to kind of rein in the spending, right? Or rein in that budget, which is
Yeah.
a bit of backwards thinking, right? Like, no, this is actually the cost it takes to really support,
Hmm.
this particular population to have great outcomes that they're looking for,
Right.
right? But because of the way the game is played, right? It's about, well, okay, how do you continue to do the same impact, but
Yeah.
with less money? And, then that becomes the um focal point, or that becomes the point of the conversation versus the other way around, which is again, that's
Yeah.
I can't blame the nonprofits for it, and at the same time, for playing the game because you got to get the funding, and at the same time, right, like you said, that's the cynical part. What are we what are we doing in these situations?
Yeah. No, because just further going into this, so I like we're talking to in spaces focused on social change, burnout and hopelessness can be real. It's something that I experience myself too. So, what keeps you grounded and hopeful and joyful in these moments, though? Like, what keeps you still staying in the nonprofit world, despite like what we were talking about, the cynicism that might come up and stuff.
Yeah, part of it I think goes to my third value around like trying to experience life as much as possible. I think one of the other things with me is I tend to listen to what people tell me.
Okay.
That's good or bad. But some of good advices I think, and people for the longest always tell you, right? Like it's so common, like enjoy life as much as, or life is short and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like every time I look, 15 years again in
Yeah.
nonprofit, and I still remember coming, like being, very like coming out of college and like looking for a job and those kinds of things. It's just
Yeah.
like it was yesterday. I remember like not
Yeah.
having kids, right? And now I have two. And it's just like
Right.
life changes so much.
It does.
And I think it's just about cherishing those, like I said, even my childhood, right? Like,
Yeah.
sure, if I name the things that have happened bad, like it feels like my childhood was
Yeah.
not good, but I always look at my childhood as a very much with fond memories.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think there's some pieces of that of just knowing that one, the source of joy is like
Yeah.
it's like I gotta find the joy, right?
Yeah.
And I gotta source it myself. And so whether it's connecting with, reconnecting with you is like a highlight today. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Being able to
Yeah.
just connect,
Totally.
see my family, right? Like at home after a long day's work, and I remember we talked about it too. It's just like sometimes you just gotta vent.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with venting. There's a healthy place to vent.
Yeah.
You just don't want to be stuck in a place where you're always venting, and that's kind of the framework,
Yeah.
right? So that becomes unhealthy. But
Right.
you know, like I was sharing earlier, there was a point where I think I was a bit too happy-go-lucky and not really
Mm.
not recognizing, and thinking that if I avoid certain things or to face certain things, that it's gonna be okay and it's gonna go away. And so
Yeah.
it's about properly identifying those things.
Yeah.
I think that's how at least I've been able to, I think,
Yeah.
even after all these years, still, you know, enjoy what I'm doing. And coworkers, I
Hmm.
think, especially in this
Yeah.
work, right? Like
Right.
if you can't laugh,
Uh-huh.
right, and just have joy in what we do, because yeah, there's days that are just like heavy, and there's moments and
Right.
there's really those times where it is heavy, but um if it's always like that, then, you know, I think the work culture wise then, or whatever it is, it's going to hit you at some point,
Yeah.
it's going to burn you out. Um, so
Yeah. No, I think you bring up an important point too. I think this is something that I realized as I'm getting older too. Like, our lifetime is relatively short compared to how long humanity's been in existence, because I remember when I was very young I used to think like the civil rights movement was like, oh, that's so a long time ago. And
mhm.
as I grew older, it's like, no, actually, if you think about time, it's not that far back from before I was born. And something that I learned in college too is like, I think in school when I was young, it was like, oh, this is the civil rights movement. That's what happened then. But in college, I learned that no, the civil rights movement never ended. We're just taking on the reins, and like it just looks different now. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's so true, and it's, I think it's gonna be interesting. I think to look back, even when we're older, to kind of look back at even this kind of time frame that we're in, right, and
Yeah.
what's gonna be happening at the time, and how we're gonna talk about it or even share it with our
Yeah.
kids and their kids. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast in the first place too, because I feel like there's like so much negativity or like people, saying there's so much division and everything. But what I wanted to show people is like, no, yeah, there's a lot going on right now, but there's also a lot of wonderful, amazing people doing like good work and really trying to make their communities more beautiful.
Yeah.
And, it's like, I don't know. I'm more optimistic. I can be cynical too, but I feel like that optimism, like, no, I don't think the world's going to burn down. I think there's a lot of good people out there that are going to, really step up and try to make things better, versus like, just negativity, all the time. No, I think there's beautiful people out there doing beautiful things.
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate you, giving voice to folks, and I think being able to just, yeah, have a platform for able to do that. Because I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Being able to just have that positivity and that joy is gonna be
Yeah.
important because, I mean, honestly, part of I think the division that happens is also that the media, right? And so being able to do it. So you have this media that's just continues to sow the division, right?
Yeah.
And it's not all media, obviously, but I think it's part of the whole
Yeah.
cycle that you're talking about. And so how do we
It plays a big part in it though.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so being able to be one to, have a place where we're not because it is, I think it can be easy to be cynical when you look at big picture stuff sometimes, right? And I think
Yeah.
but when I think about really the face-to-face connections, these
Hmm.
kind of connections, even virtual, it's kind of in these small connections and interactions, I think that we continue to like
Yeah.
find our humanity in that sense. So,
Yeah, no, that's such a beautiful approach. Thank you for talking about that. So, I'd love to talk more about your work too. So, you've worked with justice impacted individuals and developed leaders from non traditional backgrounds. So, what have those experiences taught you about the power of second chances and potential? Because, that's one thing that I appreciated too. At least just working with public allies, like leadership doesn't have to look a certain way. Even me too. Like I would never have considered myself a leader and kind of grew into that, but just being like, leadership, you don't have to be loud or, we can be in the background and be leaders too. So yeah, just what did you learn about that, through working with these different kind of individuals?
yeah, I think in terms of, I think, just like leadership, I think it affirmed some of,
Hmm.
what you shared of like what what public allies did well in terms of training, right? And
Uh-huh.
talking about, again, everybody can lead, but it might just look different, right?
Hmm.
Because I definitely adhere to kind of that Western culture of like leadership, or what we would call the North, right? North
Yeah.
leadership, for the leadership compass of, loud and being able to just like direct and all that stuff. And so it wasn't until then that I think that's probably why some of the things resonated with me. Of like, no, you have these other leadership qualities, and we do call them leaders, right?
Hmm.
Even though if general society or general U.S. society won't say they were leaders, right? And we got to kind of reframe that. So, but I think in terms of just working with the different population, I mean, one of the things that was interesting was being able to just like uh, start to unearth and recognize some of my own misconceptions and biases, especially
Yeah.
around like, our kind of our prison population and
Yeah.
our justice system and the way it works. And, and this is again coming from someone that at that point I was what, 4 or 5 years into the work, having done a lot of like the, social justice kind of learnings of power, privilege, and all these
Mhm.
different things everybody can lead. So like, and this is also one of the like the learnings that I've had throughout my years. Is just like you never stop learning, and that's
Yeah.
one of those places where it was like as I start to work with individuals on a one-to-one basis and start to even learn more, reading kind of different books that really work around kind of what's happening uh, in kind of our justice system, like Michelle Alexander's
Yeah.
book. Like that was one of those, huh? Like
Mhm.
I have a lot of biases that's going on about like what people are capable of, right?
Yeah.
Or kind of my own biases around like what people are looking for, right? And so, I think that was one of those again, like great moments for me to be able to just learn about those and earth those and really unlock those so that I can work better with folks that are showing up in different ways and just how really messed up our our justice system is. Sorry, our
Yeah.
justice system is in supporting our um, it's really just it's not about rehabilitation, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so it's one of those that you get really face to face about how a system can really just um, be so against you,
Mhm.
and it's hard, and it's like trying to find a place like how a system can just be so against you, right? And at the
Right.
same time, there's still like personal responsibility in there.
Uh-huh.
I mean, like I'm not here to judge like where it ends and where it starts,
Yeah.
in those kind of places. But it was really something that again I just had to kind of face my bias. I guess is what I'm trying to say really. But yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And um yeah, just have you had like what was it like for you to just encourage folks, to step up to leadership? And I think it's just like you're saying there's so many things the systems against us and telling folks, all these messages like, oh, you're not good enough or you can't do that or yeah, did you have like conversations with folks to like uplift them to like reach their leadership potentials? And yeah, are there any like meaningful transformations that you'd love to share that you've seen?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's I think in my kind of current organization, one of the things that I see a lot of is actually, especially in the Bay Area, is kind of the model minority.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think the perfectionism,
Yeah.
especially for our folks that identify as Asian, um, it's interesting, and it's just like
Yeah.
people really hold it heavy, right? To be um, to have it all perfect and have it all laid down, and be afraid to like mess up.
Yeah.
And I can relate a lot to that. And so I think being able to just like share some of my experiences, some of my knowledge,
Hmm.
and just having individuals kind of coach through that has been have been interesting, and have been great. But a lot of tough conversations, I think, happen in those, of being able to just let go.
What are some lessons that you learned about working with community, rather for community?
A lot. I think it's
Yeah.
you know p- it's made me a better partner, right?
Hmm.
Again, just how to have honest conversations, how to have um feedback, right? That's always
Yeah.
like um how to share like again vulnerable moments, and
Yeah.
really share vulnerable moments, right? Like I think there's some places where I remember thinking the subject matter might be vulnerable in a
Uh-huh.
sense, right? Because I remember, my wife now, Sam, we'd had some long conversations, and I'd share about kind of my past and some of these things that's happened, all that stuff, and they
Yeah.
might have felt vulnerable, but they weren't really vulnerable to me because I felt like I kind of
Yeah.
dealt with it in that sense. but at the same time, I remember at some point she made a comment like, you know what? But I was always a great listener, I think, and so she would always tell me like things that happened to her.
Yeah.
All that to share. At some point, she was like, you know, I feel like you've share, or I feel like
Mhm.
you know a lot about me, but I don't know like r- really you in that sense. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
talk to you all the time, but really like those vulnerable moments, right? Of like things that really like scare me or really impact
Yeah.
in a certain way. And I think part of that is, as a male, we're told to kind of carry on,
Yeah.
um, and not, showcase those signs of quote unquote weakness.
Hmm.
Um, so that was, I think, places where again, just being able to like serve community, talk to people, see those things that are happening, and
Yeah.
identify and connect with how people are showing up and how I kind of then might impact my own life, So
Yeah.
like those things, there's even places where, and it's just even in like, not, I want to say random conversations, there's probably intentional conversations that happen, like
Mhm.
the universe wanted us to talk about this type of thing. But,
Right.
even things that as older I get, like the health, right? And kind of my own
Yeah.
health and ways that I haven't been taking care of myself and ways that I need to like, eat
Yeah.
better, work out more, make sure I'm, practicing mindfulness and those kinds of things. Because I still remember a quote early on in my career about how, you know, in this work, people die young, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it is the stress, a lot of it is the
Yeah.
heart rate, heart health, and like, but how
Yeah.
do but
No, I
staying alive is revolutionary, right? Like that's the part that like staying alive and keeping up the fight
right.
for the
No,
long.
totally. No, I remember because I did a like a community organizing internship. I think it was like back in 2006. I was pretty young in my career. Yeah, at this point I think I was still in college, but people were talking about like this work can literally kill you. You could literally work yourself to death. And it's like, I think that's what I've learned to like how to sustain myself and not get to that point. So yeah, I feel like the work that we could literally be working 24/7 and not like get everything done. So I think at a certain point of my career, I'm like, I'm just gonna work 9 to 5, 5:30, and whatever doesn't get done, I could do it tomorrow too. But just like how do you sustain yourself in this work too so that you don't burn out or like literally get sick? Yeah, not just emotionally, but it has really physical effects too.
Yeah. I remember sleeping in that office. I was like,
Take
yeah,
that. What
but
do we
you
used
look
to
back
call
at
those?
it, yeah,
We used to call them power naps. Remember, it was like,
that's
Brian,
how,
hey, it's your turn, power
you
nap.
know, you're just like, and then you look back at it, you're like, those are probably not the healthiest,
I know.
lunches and those kinds of things. You're like, ah. And so you try, I try to impart it to some of the younger folks that are kind of in this field now.
Yeah,
I think about those moments, but
yeah.
some of it we learn in the hard ways, right?
I
Uh,
know. That's what I think, I'd really like them to learn to just like not to learn from my examples and it just, yeah, just taking get better care of themselves. But yeah, actually, yeah, it's been a while since I've had like direct work with like members. Like I'd talk with them every now and then. But do you feel like that conversation is better with like this younger generation of folks doing the work? Like, are they doing a better job like taking care of themselves and
I think so. Yeah, it feels
okay.
like it. I mean, having some direct reports, I feel like there's definitely a lot more talk about work-life balance,
Mm,
right?
okay.
Even more so. I want to say it was, self-care was a buzzword when we were first, like when I
Yeah.
was first kind of getting in the work.
Hmm.
But and so it's kind of evolved in that sense. But it's good that people are able to like talk about it now in
Yeah.
like now it's really everywhere, right? It's not just like in the nonprofit we're talking about self-care, but it's really kind of
Right.
everywhere as part of the like just general lexicon. Even what was it when I was taking I always share with like the young adults now,
Hmm.
even talking about equity and equality. I remember growing up not knowing, kind of the nuance of equity and equality, right?
Yeah, I
And
had to know
nowadays
that
it's like
distinguish. Yeah, totally.
just like I'm going through this stuff and I'm like, oh, yeah, I already know this. Like someone already did this.
Uh-huh.
You've had some kind of knowledge in it. So
Yeah.
it's cool to see those advancements in the way and the nuance that we've talked. So I
Yeah.
do feel like in general, um, the younger generation, at least again, the ones that I've connected with. But I will say that I think that's also part of what I've appreciated about this. Like I miss talking to members, right?
Yeah.
And talking about kind of
Right.
those conversations that we've had about, what it means to work in this field and all stuff. So I feel like I get some of that when I have my direct reports and kind of sharing
Yeah.
a bit of like, what are you doing for yourself? How are you taking care of yourself? What's your professional development, right? In
Yeah.
terms of what you're trying to get out of this next year and those kinds of conversations. So it's that's been my way to kind of get that sense of what do you call it? Talking to members.
Yeah. No, I miss that too. Yeah. And I talked to Betsy about this too. Like I have fond memories, like reminiscing and stuff, but at my age, when I go back into it now, I'm like, no, I don't have that same youthful energy.
I know. It's so true. And that's why I like
That's a good
working with the
time.
young adults is because
Yeah.
it's like I don't have it, but
Right.
it's one of those things, right? Like sometimes you connect to things that you don't have.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Uh-huh.
there you go. Yes, you are going to change the world. That's right.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Thank you so much for sharing these too. So just like knowing what you know now, is there any advice that you would have given to your younger self, like as you were entering into the nonprofit world?
Don't do it. I'm just kidding.
Don't do it.
Go for the high paying job. No, I'm kidding.
Don't worry.
No, knowing what I know now,
Uh-huh.
um, I think what I would say is to my younger self is never stop connecting, and networking and upskilling in a way that and maybe this is also just how the economy is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's like, how do I say it? Like, I think we do just the nature of nonprofit, especially like if you work at like a smaller startup or a smaller,
Hmm.
group. Like
Uh-huh.
you just touch a lot of different things as a nonprofit, right? Like we were talking about, like you're the program manager, you're
Yeah.
the hiring person, you're also the, we're recruiting for partner organizations. Oh, and then
Yeah.
there's an audit, so we're also HR, and then oh, we're
Physically getting the
operations
files
because we gotta.
together.
So you're wearing all these many, which I've
Yeah.
always been grateful for in
Yeah.
public allies because I feel like I built up a ton of different skills that I
Yeah.
still use to this day, and can apply.
Yeah.
Volunteer management, like there's just
Yeah, no,
goes on
totally.
and on, right?
Or Q to
Uh,
Qs. I still use Q to
oh yeah,
Qs for
yeah,
events.
no.
Yeah.
Um, so but there is like, how do you still, like, how do you, I guess for a lack of a better word, like, how do you market yourself in that sense?
Yeah.
I mean, because your title says program manager, right? But your skill set and
Yeah.
that you've learned and things that you've applied for is so varied. And so,
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things. It's just like, how do I make sure my skills stay relevant so that, because I'm one that once I'm in a role in the job, like I give it my all in that sense. I'm just
Yeah.
kind of focused on that,
I'm the same way.
which I think it's a good thing. And, like everything else, double-edged sword.
Yeah.
The bad side to that is then I don't really think much about like, okay, how would I, you know, put this in
Mm.
my resume so I
Yeah.
can, for God forbid, especially with what's going on now,
Yeah.
I get laid off or there's cuts and those kinds of things, so I can still continue to run. So I don't, those are the things that I think I'm bad at and not necessarily pay attention too much.
Yeah.
You know, um, yeah,
Yeah. No, I've been struggling with that with myself too. Because I feel like I want to make my resume concise, but at the same time, I feel like maybe employers are looking for that little small details. But I'm like, but if I list out everything we did, it's
yeah,
gonna be like a really long resume.
yeah. And I feel
Yeah.
like there's this battle right now, especially
Yeah.
depending on the company that you're going for. It's like a battle of getting noticed by the
Yeah.
track, the
Yeah.
AI and the
Hmm.
ATS system,
Right.
and getting in front of like the actual person. And sometimes I feel like there's a mismatch between that. The
Yeah.
ATS will automatically like not put you in higher ranking for X, Y, and Z's because you don't have the job title of this.
Yeah.
You don't have a credential for that.
Yeah.
Versus, I think if you can just only get into the front of the hiring
I
manager, right?
know. I
Like
know.
showcase. But
Totally.
and yeah, I mean, the funny part is I would tell myself that, but I don't even know what advice I would give them in the sense of like, here's how you would want to do it, because
Yeah.
again,
That's cool.
I don't know, it just feels like a different world right now with
Totally.
the way the economy is and the job market is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know we've talked about this earlier, or rather you did, but so how do you define leaving the world a better place at this stage in your life?
Mm.
Like
Yeah, I
what
think
kind of hopes do you
yeah.
have?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, early in my career it was really more about just I think making impact and very general in that sense.
Yeah.
Like leaving it for who, right, was kind of the thing. But
Right.
now that I got kids,
Yeah.
I think there's now a piece of like the world that I'm leaving behind for them.
Yeah.
And how am I, making it a better place in that sense. So that's how I think about it. And I, there's a quote by Tupac that says, I might not change the world, but I
Yeah.
guarantee or promise you that I'm going to spark the mind that will change
Yeah.
the
I've
world.
always loved that quote too.
Yeah. So I think there's something in that quote for me that's like, the like, how am I just going to be a role model for my kids?
Yeah.
Have conversations that I didn't have growing up, right? Because it was either taboo to talk about or because, kids were not, you don't know as a kid, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
so being able to just be more open, have more open dialogue with my two kids. Um, those are the kind of things that I think about. And then
Yeah.
on kind of on my work side or my professional side is really about, how do I, to me, it goes back to like that one-to-one kind of impact.
Hmm.
Did I make you think something different? Did I make you laugh?
Yeah.
Right? Did I change kind of again, even if I change your day, I feel like that's an impact that I
Yeah.
make because there's still something to me about the human to human connection
Hmm.
that is powerful. Um,
Yeah. No, that's what I've been thinking about too. As you're talking about your kids, like with my daughter, have you had conversations with them like around social justice yet? I feel like I haven't had as many conversations as I would have liked with her.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think I feel like it comes up in a lot of different ways,
Well,
even
that's
the
cool.
election, and being able to talk about like, yeah, this is kind of why we're voting this way and this is what
Mm,
we think. And, always making sure that we qualify in a certain way. Like again, when you get older, you don't have to think, or you can make up kind of your own choice. To even
yeah.
religion, right? Like talking about those things of like, here's where kind of mommy and daddy believe in. And so
Yeah.
to us, it's about how do you, it's, it's funny because it's almost like a puzzle. Like
Uh-huh.
I mean, the point here is not really to like give all everything at once and like have it's like small
Okay.
conversations and snippets here and
Uh-huh.
there. But the puzzle is also like, how do you break down some of these complex things to like more easy language,
Right.
for an 8-year-old to understand,
Yeah.
and some of it, it's hard and but there's, again, I think this is also where I kind of start to find joy in certain things, like something that I like is trying to figure out that puzzle, and then
Yeah.
having those conversations. And sometimes it's planting seeds, and then later on,
Yeah.
he'll kind of get, from things. Uh, what was the other day? We were talking about being unhoused and why people are unhoused.
Yeah.
And then at some point, he had mentioned maybe like a month or 2 months or 3 months later, like, when I get old, I'm gonna get rich and like not have any like people are gonna have houses or something like that.
Oh, that's really cool.
That's so cute. And
Yeah.
uh but it's like adult side is like, kid, what are you talking about? That ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
But then the parent side is like, that is so adorable and cute and heartwarming, and
Yeah.
I love that you're thinking that way. So I'm not even gonna burst your bubble on,
Yeah. No,
how are
but
you
it's
gonna
that
hold that?
innocence
What's your
though.
business
Yeah.
plan?
No, but I think it's just there's
That's
something
cute.
like powerful about like that innocence though, and just like that optimism. Like I feel like as adults we need to have more of that optimism to, just
Exactly.
make
Yeah.
changes and stuff. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. And so, it's definitely one that I think about, because that's also one. I don't know if you feel this way too, of like
Hmm.
the both ends, right? Like
Yeah.
keeping the kids' innocence and like knowing, but also preparing them for the world
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
the
I've been
way it is.
struggling with
And
that
so
too.
I remember who was that? Coates, I think, wrote a book.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was Baldwin, James Baldwin. Either way, but they kind of have similar things anyway about either their nephew or their son about again the same thing. You know,
Yeah.
how do I hold on and talk about what it means to be a black man and growing up in America
Yeah.
and preparing them for the realities of that, and also just letting them being kids. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, thank you again so much, Brian. I had such a wonderful time talking with you. And yeah, it made me miss, like, I remember having conversations with you in the office. And yeah, just thank you for your time. But lastly, before we wrap up this conversation, how can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, I think you just find me on LinkedIn. You know, Brian Luis,
Okay.
and I'm there. But yeah, no, it's been wonderful. Also, so thanks for connecting and like I said, hopefully I did it some justice.
No, of course. No, you have so much wisdom. And yeah, I feel like we can have like a part two, part three, etc. You're always
Yeah,
welcome back here whenever you
yeah, I
want.
would love that.
Thank you again, Brian. I
Yeah,
hope you have a good rest of your day.
you as well. All right,
Okay.
thanks, Elise.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye. Thank you for being here and tuning in to Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community. Your presence in this movement matters. If today's conversation moved you, share it, talk about it, and keep the work going. Together, we're not just imagining change, we're making it. Until next time, stay bold, stay grounded, and stay in the fight.
Every time I feel so mad and sad and bad, I say to myself,